Hello?
Hello, Jughead. This is Archie. Come over right away. It's a matter of life or death.
Oh, relax, Archie.
Attention, all true believers. Marvel Comics is on the air.
A friend of the unfortunate, enemy of criminals. In reality, Dan Garrett, a rookie patrolman, loved by everyone but suspected by none of being the Blue Beetle.
Boys and girls, your attention, please. Presenting a new exciting radio program featuring the thrilling adventures of an amazing and incredible personality. Faster than an airplane, more powerful than a locomotive, impervious to bullets.
Up in the sky, look!
It's a bird, it's a plane, it's Superman!
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 3, 2.
Hey friends, this is Stephanie Chakowski from Doom Patrol and Star Trek Picard, and you are watching Bronze Age Nerd on YouTube. Please help support Mission 22 and our veterans by donating to Heroes for Heroes.
Hello and welcome to a very, very special episode of Best Coast Comics. I'm one of your hosts tonight, Christopher, aka the Bronze Age Nerd, and I'm joined by my usual co-host,
Bigby McFly, the comic guy.
and we have a strange visitor from up north. Welcome to Chris from Comic Tropes. How's it going, Chris?
Hello, guys. Thank you so much for inviting me to sit in tonight. This will be fun.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate you being here. Love having you in the chat most weeks. Love sitting down and watching what I can of your pros and cons shows you do on Monday as well. The weekly spinner rack. So finally, cool to have you on the show with Bigby and I. We've met in person a few times. Nice to actually be here in person on the stream.
Yeah.
And we got a lot of cool stuff to talk about tonight. Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. So we want to say hi to everybody in the chat first before we get going in the show proper here. Got lots of folks in here. We got Richard Westfall in there. GTK Comic says he beat him, but that depends on which channel you're looking at, I bet, because it looks like your comic came first on one of the channels, Richard. So
kudos. GTK is always in every live chat early.
That's great.
That's impressive.
We got Renegade Rants. Love seeing you here. Thank you for being here, Renegade Rants. Christina helped out a lot on our stream on Saturday, which I will be talking about here in a minute. So I really appreciate that, Christina.
Congrats on your recent award.
Yeah, absolutely. I got Lyle in the house. What's up, Lyle? Thanks for being here. And speaking of people that helped out on Saturday, we have actual Dracula coming in to suck our blood, but also to share wonderful art. And we are definitely going to show off some of actual Dracula's artwork later in the show, as we have before. But this time it was for Heroes for Heroes. Mr. Science Smoke, it's past your bedtime. Well, we appreciate you staying up late. Over here on the West Coast, we can stay up a little bit later. If you're on the West Coast, it's just past your bedtime. Hey, you know what? We'll send you off to dreamland, nice and gentle.
Tonight
okay.
We're all going to talk in our ASMR voices moving forward.
I get accused of doing that on the regular, so Hey, what is up? Red Chair Woodworks, thanks for being here. You got in right before the final batch of hellos, so good timing. Jay's wife said he can stay up late and watch tonight. We appreciate that, Jay, as we do appreciate your wife for letting you do it every Monday. Yep. So, folks, we have, first of all, it is Veterans Day. So we really want to say thank you to the veterans out there watching the show. If you're watching on the rewind, we appreciate that as well. To all the veterans and all the service members out there, thank you so much for what you do. We're going to be talking about a lot of what you do tonight and how we're trying to help that, but we do appreciate it. Oh, we got a little Joe there.
Got a little Joe. Got a little Page Puncher's Duke.
Page Puncher's Duke. Nice.
Thank you, veterans. No, seriously, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So in that spirit, the last few weeks here on Best Coast Comics, one of the first things we've talked about was Heroes for Heroes, the fundraiser that we're doing for Mission 22. We had an event on Saturday we're going to recap here in a little bit. But just as a quick reminder, on next Saturday, the 16th at 12 p.m. Pacific or 3 p.m. Eastern, we have our final main event. That is the fundraiser with like all the original artwork I've been showing off on social media or on previous streams. A lot of comic books, key comic books, signed collectibles. A lot of stuff from great creators that you're familiar with that you're definitely going to want to get a chance to bid on, because all the money is going to Mission 22 to support veterans and their mental health. So definitely come check that out. The show is bookmarked on my channel, so you can go and save it and like it and do all that fun stuff right now so you don't miss it when it comes on Saturday. Yep. But we need to talk about what happened on this last Saturday a little bit. And we actually have a fun update too, a meaningful update with a new total on the donations. So let me get that shared up on the screen here. So
today.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. So we are now currently at 19% of the goal of $8,000 at $1,551. Lots of great donations rolled in on Saturday. So just want to take a second to thank not only John's Comics with Kids, who was our host for that show on Saturday. Also, huge shout out to Bigby, who coordinated and ran, basically took the ball and ran past the end zone with that one, to use a Monday Night Football metaphor for everybody that's not watching Monday Night Football. But yeah, he basically took us over the finish line with that, because some scheduling stuff kind of cropped up. We really needed to kind of get this community art stream organized. And so he helped out. He reached out to a lot of people, got a lot of artists involved. We'll talk about all those artists on the stream too. Thanks to everybody that was part of that on Saturday and helped raise that extra, basically we jumped up about $1,000 over the weekend, which is fantastic. So that's one of the first things we're going to do tonight, actually, is normally at the end of the show, we do community artwork, and we kind of look at artwork from the community. This is basically all community artwork that was sold on this show. So I think it'd be kind of fun to bump up community artwork to the front of the show, and we can kind of check out what some of the people did for the artwork for Heroes for Heroes on that community live draw. And that'll kind of cue us up perfectly for our main topic that we're going to talk about later in the show, which is some of our favorite artists that have inspired us or that we enjoy in comic books that make us want to either read more comics or draw more. So that's our main topic tonight, coming up later. Sound good, everybody?
Sounds good. Do we need to do our sub up too? And
oh, you're right. Yeah, I should absolutely mention that in the description of this video. You will find links for not only my wonderful co-host tonight, Bigby McFly, the comic guy, and also Chris from Comic Tropes. You'll find links to their channels. Go sub them up, because they are great channels. And if you're not all subbed up to them already, you're missing a lot of great content. So you want to make sure you go and do that now. We're also streaming live over on the EXP. You probably noticed that in the intro of the show. The EXP is a comic book streaming network. They do claim sales. They do original art shows with like Nick Barucci doing amazing stuff over there. Comic book reviews, comic book news, all kinds of fantastic stuff that we'll talk about throughout the show tonight as the time goes on. But also go sub up over there. They've just passed 3,000 subscribers. They're trying to get even more than that, because every time they hit a milestone, they do unlock new content. So go sub up over there as well. Good point, Bigby. Thanks for reminding me about that.
We're getting excited about showing the artwork. I know.
Yeah, I wanted to jump right in, but you rein me in, and I need that. I need that from time to time. So let me open up our first community member here that contributed.
We don't have art samples from everybody, so anybody who we don't show, I can mention them at least.
Yeah, some of the artwork that was sold was actually a future commission or pieces that were in progress. So a few things that we don't share, we definitely will share as time goes on. Hey, what's up, West Coast Avengers? How's it going, Dave?
Hey.
That's awesome.
All right. So first,
let's say happy birthday to Dave tomorrow. Tomorrow's Dave's birthday.
Oh, hey, happy early birthday, Dave. If I don't get a chance to talk to you tomorrow. That's awesome.
Birthday, Dave.
It's also a couple other community members. It's Bleecker Street Comics birthday today, I believe, and Glenn 2K over in the UK. It's his birthday as well. So quite a few community members have birthdays right now, it seems like.
There we go.
You know what else? I've noticed they all tend to have it the same time every year. So it's something that we can like anticipate next time.
It's kind of uncanny as far as how that works. I've noticed that too. I've noticed that as I get older, my birthday is happening the same time every year. It's just like,
nice.
It's strange.
That must be nice for your family.
It's convenient. Yeah.
Right.
And it's cool because I noticed they started doing the same thing. So I think they're kind of like copying me.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So this is our first piece of artwork. This is actually from Actual Dracula, who's in the chat. So this is fantastic. I saw him share this on social media, and he was getting all kinds of kudos for it. Very well deserved. He whipped this out on the live stream. Thankfully, that's all he whipped out, so we were safe there for YouTube monetization reasons. But no, he drew this, and he did an amazing job. Absolutely killed it. Fantastic job, Dracula. You killed it, man.
We're going to talk about people that inspire us, artists and stuff that from comics, but like being on that live stream and watching everybody's technique and how they did things and just being able to be there and just kind of just share in that glow of all that artwork that amped me up for drawing. So actually so much that I did a live stream after the drawing with more drawing.
Yeah, absolutely. As Kevin says there, love the shading. Yeah, agreed. He did a great job on that. Yeah, you're welcome, man. Thank you. So Actual Dracula, his name is Adrian, always impresses me. He was doing some digital drawing on your stream. He was doing a first Luke Cage homage cover, right? Yeah.
That was really cool. And it was actually kind of neat. If you guys watched that, we were actually talking a lot of like technique and tools and a lot of that kind of stuff too. So it was kind of neat.
Yeah, definitely go check that out. That's probably your most recent live stream on Big B's channel. Yep. So this is a piece by Ben Taz. Ben, we featured lots of his artwork on this show before as well. He did this. This is actually really cool. Not only, well, I guess the coolest part is I actually was the winning bidder on this one. I went to the mat for this one because I really wanted to get it.
I reined myself in from bidding against you.
But he killed it. Not only did he kill it on this, he actually reached out to Dave Stevens' sister to get permission to do this for this cause, which I think is above and beyond. That was really cool that he did that. He's had some contact with them before. It sounds like when he was picking up his Planet Comics #1, which this is an homage to, which I'll actually switch over to the next slide here.
It looked familiar and I wasn't placing it. So as soon as you said Dave Stevens, I started thinking, got it. That's so cool.
Yeah. And I think it's just, it's kind of icing on the cake that he reached out to Dave Stevens' sister to make sure that it was okay with her to do something like this for this cause, which again, I think that's above and beyond. That was just really kind of a neat extra part of the story. I love that he put Mission 22 on there. And he made the driver is his friend. And then the person on the back is based on his wife, which is really cool too.
His wife and his wife's best friend.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's right. Thank you.
There's actually more icing to that story. When I invited him, I did not know that he had an injury, neurological injury, where he thought he was never going to be able to draw again. And he was really hesitant to even pick up a pen and try. And I said, hey, no pressure. I didn't realize that had happened. I'm really sorry to hear that. And he said, what's the charity that you guys are working for? And I said, it's Mission 22. It's a mental health charity for veterans. And he said, man, how can I say no to that? I'm going to pick it. I'm going to do it. And he's like, I'm blown away that I'm able to do this. And now we may see some new stuff from him. So.
That's awesome. It's an awesome success story. I'm glad if it inspired him to get out there and do more of this, because he's obviously very clearly talented. He was showing off some of his graphic novel he did, which he did it kind of on a lark as a challenge that one of his friends delivered to him. And he was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it. And it looks great. So he did an awesome job on that.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
This is by a little known artist named Big B McFly. Now, did you already start this before the stream? Is kind of like you were setting it up, or did you draw the entire thing on the stream?
Right on the stream, started drawing it.
Wow.
So.
That's cool because I think it took a while to get it around to you, and by then, like you already had. It was kind of cool because you were like, I could finish this piece off as either She-Hulk or Power Girl because you hadn't drawn the hair yet, and you kind of left it open. And the winning bidder requested that it be Power Girl, so you were able to kind of finish it up as Power Girl, showing off one of her sides you don't see very much of it, not as much of, I should say. But yeah, you did a great job on this, man.
Thank you. It came out well. I was very happy with it.
And this guy is going to enjoy getting that in the mail, I think, because he's a huge Power Girl fan. Awesome. And then I think we have, this one too. You drew. Did Richard win this one?
Don't remember. No, it was our buddy, the Batman suit fella. I can't think of his name right now.
Did you freehand all those curves, or were you using a curve template?
Freehand. Yeah. Our friend that we met at the show that wore the Batman suit, bronze.
John.
Yeah.
I gotcha.
Yeah, that's
when
all
Batman suit. I always think of a bat suit, but no, he wears a Batman suit, like an actual like business suit of Batman logos
all over it. Yep.
John's awesome. He also donated for Heroes for Heroes as well. He donated some awesome pieces, like a signed Frank Miller book, which is really cool, and a slab too. So that you did awesome on that one, man. Would you call it like a fiery imp? Is that what you called this one?
Yeah, I'm not sure if he's controlling the chains or if he's chained up, but I don't know if you guys see the chains in the background there, and yeah, got some flames and skulls. And I said when John bid on it, all that was really done was the figure, and not even that wasn't even like totally complete shaded and stuff. And so I said, I'm going to add skulls and chains and fire and just go nuts. So I'm like, it's going to be very spawny.
Yeah, that definitely reminds me of that for sure. I love all the work in the background there, though. Like it really makes this piece look. It stands out.
Thanks.
And then this I think is the final one we have to share from Bigby. He did this awesome Hellboy.
That one a while ago, but it was a finished piece that was auctioned off.
Very cool. I think this one could go right with the Baroness he did for the whole like doing a smoking barrel series kind of.
What are you smoking barrel?
Awesome. And then this is Eddie Rodriguez, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and this was on the little cover up there in the yellow.
Yeah, I didn't really quite.
This is his own slab that he put together.
Oh, that's what it is. It's his own slab. Okay, I didn't know if it was like
because I was trying to understand it too. That's really cool, though.
Yeah, he's got a slab. It's slabbed with his own label and everything in it.
Wow, I didn't know you could do that. So you could just you can buy empty slabs yourself and put whatever you want in it and seal it yourself?
Yeah, I don't know if it was one that he pried open and put the book in and put his own label in there, or how he did it, but it's all slabbed up.
Yeah, it does look. It looks a little bit like the EGS slabs, maybe, but that's a good question. He did a great job on it, though.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I think John's Comics with Kids ended up with that.
Oh, nice. Right on. Yeah, that's a good one. And this is one of two pieces I have to show from Norin Rad. This was probably one of my favorites that was drawn during the stream, just because I really like it when somebody does a cool creature kind of, you get to see all the, bulkiness of the Man Thing and all the different, curls in the muscle. And he even did a good job on putting some background here, which is pretty cool to do during a stream.
So this isn't finished. This was just the progress he had made through the stream.
But he did a great job on that one. And then he did this one. Oh, I just realized I forgot. You posted the colors for this one. And I forgot to grab that.
Yep. So he had done 2 commissions that he had up for grabs, and he actually got to work on both of them on the stream and showed progress on both of them, so people could kind of get an idea of where he was going with that.
Yeah, and this looks really great finished too. What I'll try to do is next week I'll try to show that off during our community artwork segment, so you can see the finished colors on that. And this was Philtastic sent this one in. Another great supporter. We appreciate him being on there. Well, sending pieces in for there, I should say.
So yeah,
nice
three pieces he sent.
What do
in.
you think
That's
he used to color? Do you think that like I'm trying to figure out whether that's pencil or watercolors or a mix?
Watercolor. It's all
Is it?
watercolor.
It's all watercolor. Okay.
I like some of the texture, especially on the cowl.
Yeah,
that's cool. I'm not like a mixed media kind of artist. I'm just a pencil and digital kind of guy. So I almost thought that was like charcoal or something that he colored over. It just has that kind of cool look to it. That's really awesome. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Everybody familiar with that one?
There's a few
That's
artists that are. I just want to say real quick that are really good at using watercolors. I think that Tyler Crook and Peach Momoko are two people that are really like showing what you can do with that specific set of art tools in comics, and I like to see some fan art that experiments with it too. I think it adds a texture and a liveliness and organic nature that I admire, and I'm a little jealous of because I don't feel like I have too much control when I do watercolors.
Yeah, if you like watercolor, check out Yuko Smith on Instagram.
Yeah.
My God, that guy, amazing artist, and he uses watercolor for all of his colors. It just blows me away.
Really cool.
It blows me away that was watercolor. Like that absolutely stretched my imagination of like what could be done with watercolors, because I think of it as being less precise than that, and he's so precise with it. So
yeah,
he did a great job. Yeah, I think we're going to try to get him on at some point. It sounded like.
Yeah, I had talked to him about being on it, and he was receptive to that idea. So
cool. Definitely somebody. Hey, even if we can't get him on, we're definitely going to love to feature some of his artwork at some point because he does a great job. This Roscoe was in the chat earlier. This is awesome. Roscoe did this piece and donated it.
I wasn't expecting that. That was nice. That's fun. That's really fun.
Yeah, his like I always call like his mashups, or like in my head I'm like they're kind of like cartoon mashups, and he does such a phenomenal job on these. It's just incredible. And he drew Little John on the back too. I don't have that picture, but it's on the back of the blank cover. So that's really fun.
Yeah, it's a wrestling homage. That's Jake the Snake. It's Prince John as Jake the Snake, and then on the back is Little John as another wrestler. I forget which one.
So cool. Roscoe's art is always it's so creative. It always gets me that way because. Yeah, and I love sending him too. He won a prize package. I sent him a bunch of cartoon related artwork kind of stuff that he could kind of use as references if he wanted to or whatever, because he says he loves that stuff, like mask trading cards and stuff.
Do you guys think that Jake the Snake's original snake is still alive and doing well?
Don't know.
Probably not.
Snakes live a long time.
Yeah, but like having been like
he always treated them so well. Carrying them around in a bag and throwing them on top of
throwing them on people.
That really just increases their longevity.
Town every night. I'm sure that snake's doing great.
He was just increasing his endurance.
Oh, he is not. I think Mr. Science Snake knows.
738.
We have
never
Mr.
used
Science
the same snake twice.
That's great. Multiple Damians. Oh, that's R.I.P.
I want to say thank you to Roscoe for coming, because Roscoe came on and he was working on a piece on there that we also auctioned off, and he put through some discomfort and pain with his hands, and I just want to really thank him for being there.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely, a little bit like Ben, kind of overcoming some issues to do artwork. And especially for a cause like this, I really appreciate when you guys did that. So thanks to both of you.
Are you guys familiar with the group that Erwin Papa, the guy that we just highlighted the comment, are you familiar with his art group?
I'm not.
They're part of this great group down in Long Beach, California. They just a bunch of people kind of like us, but that they meet up regularly at a bar and just all draw together, and they self-publish comics and stuff together. They've done some really great stuff. And I used to do that myself when I lived in DC. I helped form a group there, and we'd meet at a bar at least once a month. We'd self-publish comic books, comic strips, like newspapers. It was great, like just a great time.
That's awesome.
So are they, Adam is down there, right? Adam Lemna?
That's called the Ink and Drink Long Beach. If you look for them on something like Instagram. And so I just like to put that out because maybe you are new to a town or looking for people with similar interests. And I really think it's a fantastic idea for socializing, especially as we get older. If you have a comfortable enough like restaurant or bar where there's space to move around, it's so fun to just draw with other people. Like you guys, you're talking about doing it like live Bigby with some of these people online, which is awesome. Doing it in person is really, really fun too.
Nice. Oh, and Jay points out that they've been on one of the shows on the XP, which is Sketch Up with Mog and Mel. They do kind of like what we do. If you liked what happened on Saturday, if you happen to go watch that on John's Comics with Kids channel, if you like that format, definitely go check out that show on the XP as well, because they bring on guest artists all the time and do live sketching. Yeah, absolutely awesome, Roscoe.
Yeah, I just really respect groups like that and just wanted to give it a shout out. And maybe somebody out there hadn't thought of doing something like that, or like maybe you should be the one that creates that sort of organization in your town.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great suggestion. I think especially because so many people are looking for that kind of connection. Like I notice that every con I go to, we go to these comic swaps, stuff like that. People want to hang out. They want to do more than just, hang out and YouTube chats, which is also great, but they're looking for something extra,
This piece, I want to hear about it. This really gives me memories of like Total Ben and Bissett when they were working on Alan Moore's run of Swamp Thing, specifically some of that fine
when
line.
I said when we auctioned that piece is that exact thing.
Really? Yeah, I definitely see some Bissett and a little bit Total Ben. I know a lot of people would say like Veach, and I see, because they were, he's worked on Swamp Thing, but that's great.
Yeah.
And this was this Scott Hasselwood?
This is Scott Hasselwood from Portland. He actually donated 4 different Swamp Thing pieces, all of them in a different style of a Swamp Thing artist. So
that's really cool to hear.
Cool.
Yeah, very cool. He did a great job, and appreciate him donating that art. I won a different piece too, and I'm looking forward to getting it. So I'll show that one off when I get it in. And then, here's another one.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh man, I get it. Yeah, he's like drawing it all huge, like how Sienkiewicz did something like Kingpin or something. That's fantastic.
Very cool. Love it.
That's awesome. And he told me he's live at a convention in Portland. So
that's cool.
Those are great.
I actually have one more that I needed to show. Whoa, that is really zoomed in. There we go.
Did you get the one from Norin?
You're talking about the colored Spawn one? Or is there a different one too?
Yeah, never mind. Yeah, you got it. That's right.
Okay.
That's really interesting.
The one you didn't get, yeah.
And then, so this one actually, part of that image was actually featured on the thumbnail for John's stream that he did. This is right here in the chat. Comics Limited did this Captain America piece. Mm-hmm. Kind of a negative image sort of thing. Not
Very
negative in a bad way, of course.
You're just negative that for the thumbnail.
Yeah. Very cool.
I admire how few lines there are there. It's great.
So great job on that, Trav. I know he did some commissions as well that are going to be in progress that we'll show off when they're done, as long as he shares it with us, which I'm sure he will. And Comics Limited, Trav is one of those guys that's actually helping out with Heroes for Heroes. He's going to help me out with some of the shipping afterwards, which is highly appreciated because that's definitely an undertaking as all that stuff goes out. So very good job there. And then actually, you know what, since I I'm right here. I may as well just do this. Let's just show Norin's.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, there it is.
So there it is, all colored up. It definitely adds a huge dimension to it. So
yeah, those colors pop.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of people doing commissions. Can I shout out the few people that weren't able to show?
Yeah, absolutely. Please do.
Adam Lemna from Cosmic Lion. Actually, he had I practiced to need to finish piece. So he had one from A Drink and Draw. That's what made me think when you said, because he's
the Frankenstein piece.
Yeah. Well, he had the Wolfman finished piece, the 11 by 17 that he said.
Oh, right.
A Drink and Draw that was for a published book. We auctioned that off, and he's doing a commission. Elliot Wright from the UK, a great tattoo artist who is doing a sketch cover. Eddie did the Wonder Woman slab and doing a commission piece. Drax doing the commission did that commission. Barbarian Kung Fu also donated a really cool Rick and Morty, and the amazing Dr. Plagueis teamed up with me and donated 2 T-shirts with the Swamp Thing Big B McFly logo to people. We auctioned those off as well. So
yeah, some great stuff. And I actually will be able to show off that Barbarian Kung Fu. It's like a Rick and Morty Amazing Fantasy 15 homage. Because I won that one too. I forgot that's probably already on its way to me, or will be tomorrow when the post office opens again. So very cool stuff. Anyways, all the artists, everybody who contributed, anybody who bid, anybody who jumped into the chat on that stream, thank you. All that stuff is extremely helpful. So
that's right. Dracula's doing a Jonah Hex commission.
Right on. That's cool. I think that's going to turn out great. I can't wait to see that one.
We got to see him digitally starting it on the live stream on my channel, where he was doing cool. Because I was like talking about how you and I were classic pen and ink pencil paper, and right as I was saying that, he grabbed one of the hand with the gun, and he's like moving it over here, no, maybe over here, maybe not. And I'm like, that's what I can't do.
Yeah. So last Christmas, I got a Samsung Galaxy tablet. I primarily got it.
That's not how the lyrics go.
Yeah. Last Christmas, I got a Samsung Galaxy tablet. And primarily to read comics. That was the biggest thing I got it for, because I love reading digital comics. My tablet was getting really slow and really old. But it came with an active stylus, and I started drawing on it. And that's kind of why I started drawing digital, because I could just sit there while I'm watching TV, kind of like Chris was talking about behind the stage. He was talking about playing some games while we watch the stream. Well, I could sit there and, watch a stream or watch a TV show with my wife and be drawing away. And
my wife.
It's a little more convenient. So, you learn stuff like that.
You were doing while watching the Penguin, right?
What? Yep, I didn't hear you, Bigby.
Oh, Braun sent me a sketch that he was working on while watching the Penguin.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I was trying to do the Colin Farrell
likeness. Actually, I thought it was really good.
I'll be honest, I see your art, Bigby. You share it pretty regularly on your Insta. I didn't realize, Christopher, that you drew. I haven't seen your art.
If we can call it, you're being very generous by calling it that. Here, I'll actually show it real fast. So this is just a super quick thing
that totally looks like, I see the likeness right away, though.
Yeah, it's good likeness. I thought you did good.
Not my normal kind of style. Well, actually, we'll talk about the styles I try to emulate as we talk about some of our artistic heroes here in a minute. But yeah, thank you. I try to show off my stuff. I'm really, really, really slow, because I'll take something like this and I'll spend if I wanted to finish this, I'll probably spend another few hours trying to tweak it and basically redrawing it section by section to make it look acceptable to me. And so it takes me forever.
I deal with the same thing. I'm very slow, and it's it's easy to say and it's hard to do. You need to just be confident that this is your current work, and you'll get better by just finishing it and moving on to the next thing and taking whatever lessons you learned from the last piece. But it's just so hard for me to actually internalize that and just, this is the best I can do. Move on.
Yeah.
My art looks like serial killer art. It scares me. Everything about you is scaring me more and more, Dave, the more I get to know you.
Dave, your art is really cool, actually. I think I have an original piece on the back of my Turlock Dinosaur Hunter that I got from you.
Oh, that's the hot book of the week.
Yeah, right. The hot book of the last 20 years. 30, well, God, now I feel old. 30 years.
I just remembered that, like, I forgot to do something on my show earlier tonight because, like, I've been joking online about the hot book of the week a lot. I think it started actually talking to Dave, and I wanted to do the top 5 comic book hunks of the week on my show and like pick actual artists and just say like the hunk of the week and
nice
turn that into a thing. I mean,
Marvel used to do that with the bullpen. They had the
I remember
Ralph Macchio
and one of JR Jr.
Right.
Real fast, and just to take a moment, as we talked about the show earlier, Jay's kind enough to give me the note here that show, the Sketch Up with Mog and Mel show I was talking about, if you're interested in that kind of format, that is Thursdays at 10 Eastern, 9 Central, 7 Pacific, 8 Pacific? Yeah, 8 Pacific here on the West Coast. Nope, I got that wrong.
7.
I got that wrong.
Right the first time.
3 7 3 hours. That's right.
You just skipped over a mountain.
Yeah, as we all do. Let's be honest. So interested in checking them out. Mog and Mel are great folks. I totally agree. That's a fun show to kind of sit back and watch. I wasn't able to be part of the stream we're talking about on Saturdays, but I was able to watch the whole stream, and that is such a treat to like sit back and watch people draw. I know Chris has done that sometimes. He's done a few sketches live. I love sitting back and watching that. Big B was doing his sketching even after, and I watched some of that as well because it's fun to see the creative process. Yeah,
super cool, and thanks to Drac for hanging out afterwards. That was really fun. And Travis from Comics Limited was there as well. So thank you, Travis and Drac, for hanging out and drawing with me.
Yeah, that was awesome. Hector Ortiz has a really great question. Does anybody else find it kind of difficult at first switching from doing traditional art to digital and vice versa? Yeah. I
don't find it that hard. That's interesting. You guys
okay.
do? I
first did. So I started working with a Wacom tablet maybe like 10, 11 years ago. It was the one where you're looking at the screen, but you're drawing down here on the flat in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
So you're trying to, and eventually I got to where I could not even look at where my hand was and be looking at where the cursor is on the screen. But it took a little bit of getting used to, for sure.
For me, it's like where I get difficulties with it is going from digital back to traditional, because I rely, like the other thing is I love to erase. So erasing is so fun for me on digital because it's just like undo or swipe away or clear layer. And so when I'm like, oh yeah, every line matters a little bit more. I mean, you can still erase, of course, but John Stout, we talked about him earlier. Last year he won a prize, which I did like an A6 sized Batman sketch with like a full skyline behind him, and that was really tedious, like doing all that like on traditional, whereas I was kind of getting used to drawing digital at that time. So that was a lot of fun, but it was also very challenging to switch over to doing that. But obviously I wanted to send him something special that was, a traditional drawing. So not just a print or something like that. And I thought that was kind of hard for me. But I'm somebody who didn't draw for like 20 years and is kind of just getting back into it over the last like year and a half. So that's part of it too.
I like both of them. My thing when I draw digitally is I tend to work on a much bigger canvas than like the equivalent piece of paper. And I lean into that and give it more detail essentially. So it takes a lot longer, especially like, realistic backgrounds and stuff. I love the control that you have there, and if you need to even put in a piece of reference for the pattern of a building or what a car looks like, I can just sort of drop that image and be drawing beside it or something like that. Yeah. That stuff I love, but like I'm much faster with traditional pen and ink. So that has its appeal too.
Hey John. We were just shouting you out and singing your praises for stepping up and hosting that stream the other night. So appreciate that.
You're amazing, John. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of like using references like you're talking about, Chris, one of the things I do like about doing digital, it's something that Dracula actually mentioned on Big B Stream, is talking about he likes doing digital when he's coloring, because it's just, I don't know, to me, that's a lot of fun. And for me, when I'm trying to learn more about coloring, which is something that, I've kind of been trying to play around with inking, I'm trying to play around with coloring. It's fun for me because then I can what do you call it, eyedropper or sample other colors. And it's a little bit easier than like trying to mix my own colors. I'm like, okay, I kind of want to go for this blue and I want to see like how I can shade that. And so that's kind of nice, to use that as well on digital. Coloring on digital is fun.
You know what messes with me with digital is using something like an eyedropper tool and going like, I think I want that color. And then you see what that color actually is. And you're like, oh, that's not even close like to what I thought it was. That's not real.
Yeah.
This is showing up as like
right,
purple.
because you're looking at it with all of the
brown.
other colors around it, right? And you're
exactly
can sway what you think you're looking at.
So I love control of like working in layers and stuff like that. But one nice thing is like, say I'm using like, a Copic or something like that. This just forces me to go, okay, that is the color. I got to base my palette around this because there's no erasing. But I can have the fun of blending, and like the colors are very vibrant and pop really well right off the bat. And you just sort of like lean into it. I don't know. They both have their advantages. They really do.
Yeah, I want to learn the Copic stuff. That seems really
I don't feel I'm good at any of it necessarily, but I personally love trying to do every type of role in comics. Like I've done everything like writing and editing and lettering and coloring. But like, in person, I try, like, my wife is a painter, so I have full access to, if I want to do watercolor or acrylics or oils, she'll let me play with any of that. And I'm not good, but I love playing with it all. And then I've always got my own, like, traditional, sort of comic book tools nearby to
right. That's
I
cool.
like
really
varying
cool.
it
I didn't
up.
know your wife was a painter. That's really cool.
She's really good. And it's gotten us to some cool places here and there. She's not like, she doesn't do it all the time, but every once in a while, like, she'll get a gallery show or something. It got us to Hong Kong once. That was really cool.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. That's
very cool.
Very
I don't know if you're comfortable sharing. Is there anywhere her art is visible online, and or anywhere we can go look at it?
She hasn't kept anything up to date. She's just not on social as much as I am. She does have a gallery in Seattle, the Greenwood Art Collective. So that's in Greenwood, Seattle. Like, you guys are here in the Pacific Northwest. That's all I can say. There's like a monthly art walk, and she varies up there a little bit. It's about all I can say.
That's cool.
She's definitely like knows that she should do more online stuff, because like that's where I'm terminally online with everything, and I'm always like, do it with me, or let me help promote your stuff, and she's just does her own thing, and I respect her for it.
Nice.
Thanks for asking.
I love Dracula's comment here. He says that working digitally has made him a better traditional artist because it's allowed him to experiment with different styles and just get more done in general. That's a really cool point.
He was saying that he does a lot of like mock-up and stuff on digital, and then he'll print it out and then work on it through a light table to do the finalized versions and stuff. So I thought that was pretty cool, because he can work a lot more quickly and be able to do adjustments and move things around, and then switch it over to the finalized, traditional art. So
there's a tool you could get yourself. Any artist can, of like, they sell it as a set at art supply stores, and it'll be like sort of a black flat stone and a water dip brush. And it's sort of like, I think it's Chinese. It might be Japanese. I'm not sure. But you draw with just water on the stone, and your lines show up, but they will fade, and then like pretty fast, all things considered. So the idea is to focus on the process of making the art and being okay with it, like going away and being impermanent, and to focus less on the result and more on the act of creating the art. And I kind of find that beautiful in a way, to like bring the enjoyment and the pleasure back to yourself. Like if you can get yourself into that kind of a mood where you're okay not keeping the art that you're creating, it's kind of a beautiful thing in a way.
Couldn't you just turn the camera on that and doing that?
You could do that. You could do that, and that's fun. But that almost goes against the purpose.
The idea,
you could do that digitally.
You have some permanence then too. Yeah, I see what you're saying, but the physical keeping of it is gone.
I mean, there's an animator that I really like called Harry Partridge, and every once in a while he'll do a live stream and just like draw things that like the audience tells him to draw, like maybe from his childhood, like draw Yogi Bear, and he's like, all right, I'll try. And he just like draws it digitally, and there's like, that's the best I can do. Boom, he wipes it out. Like, what else should I draw? And I kind of like that.
Yeah, that's cool. That is cool.
But thank you to Richard Westfall for pointing out. He says it's a Chinese tool. Okay, I wasn't.
Yeah,
quite
thanks, Richard.
Remembering.
I think I'm going to call a bit of an audible here because I'm having a great conversation with you guys talking about artwork. Normally, we would kind of transition into talking about the news. I'm going to say, why don't we talk about our favorite artists and our artistic heroes for a little while, since I'm loving this conversation. And at the end of the show, if we got some time left over, hey, we can cover some of that news. I know Chris already did a great job covering most of it on his show. So I highly recommend going and checking out his other channel besides Comic Tropes called Pros and Cons. Well, yeah.
Different opinions, but sure.
Yeah.
Whatever you want.
And I mean, we definitely might get to some of that too, time permitting. But I know we have a lot of artists to talk about. Just looking at Big B and I's list, we made sure to kind of divide it up a little bit, so we weren't just talking about the same people over and over. Spoiler alert: our first list was identical.
It kind of scary that our lists were almost exactly the same. When we're talking about artists that inspire us to draw.
Wow.
Yeah.
It was like.
So luckily there's a lot of great ones to choose from, though, and so we both kind of changed up a few of our picks to kind of maybe talk about a few more artists. And I think the cool thing about this is going to be we're going to be able to talk about the other people on the panel's opinions of those artists if they're familiar with them, which I think in most cases we probably will be, and then kind of talk about what we all like about their work, which I think is really kind of fun to talk about artistic heroes, because talking to other artists, a lot of people in here getting inspired to do art, like we do our community stuff. We talk about art groups being started. I think this goes right hand in hand with that topic. So we don't really, Big B is very organized at the last minute and sends me all these awesome pictures for all his artists and stuff. So he's very organized in that.
I squeezed it down to one per.
No, you did great. But Chris and I didn't do that ahead of time. So we might pull up some examples as we talk about them. We may not. I might just do a Google image search for artists as we talk about them. His stuff I can bring up. But since we are kind of prepared with your list, and since going clockwise, you come next, Big B, why don't you start us off and tell us about your first artist that is an artistic hero of yours and why they're an artistic hero?
So, my first artist, you can watch a wonderful little documentary on Chris's channel about him. It was going to be Mike Zeck. I really love his artwork. Did some amazing work on the Punisher miniseries. A lot of people will be familiar with that. Captain America for quite a while, and a lot of work on G.I. Joe. G.I. Joe being one of my first loves for comics. I saw a lot of his work on the covers. And
a lot of great cover works. Yeah.
Yes.
A lot of great covers.
So his cover there for Captain America annual number, I forget which annual number it is, but it's wonderful. It's 8.
It's what comes to the top of my head, but I could be wrong.
I was going to say like 13 or 12. I don't know. Anyway, it's a beautiful cover featuring Wolverine and Captain America, and I just love his action work, his attention to detail when he was drawing a Deathlock, just all the little rotting stuff on his face and everything. He just every little speck of detail, and just who I just remembered somebody that I totally forgot is George Perez.
Oh yeah,
as I'm speaking about detail, I'm like, oh my god, George Perez. But so just love Mike Zeck. His artwork is amazing. And what are your guys' thoughts on Zeck?
I mean, obviously, I like him. I made an episode about him, and the only reason Mike Zeck wasn't somebody that I did years ago was because some artists I like so much, it's like intimidating for me to make an episode about them because I want to get it right. I know that sounds weird, but it's like I get like there's some artists like that will be coming out as I continue to go, and I was just too intimidated to talk about them at first. There's a lot to like about him. One thing I like about Mike Zeck is that, I agree, Dave. Mm-hmm. I think that drawing covers and drawing sequential storytelling are two radically different skills, actually, even though a lot of artists do both. And I think he's good at both. I think he's an exceptional cover artist. I really do. His run on Deathstroke really stands out. But, don't get me wrong. Like, I love his interiors. Kraven's Last Hunt, I think, is my favorite Spider-Man story. It's not the Spider-Man you instantly think of, like quippy and funny and stuff. It's a darker story, but it's so damn good and shows you what's important about Spider-Man. And I think that Zeck just brought so much humanity to every character there, even the villains.
Yeah,
definitely. Zeck is I think Chris said it very well. Like, for me, I think of him primarily as a cover artist in, dare I say, kind of an era before there were really cover artists. And I mean, he obviously did a lot of interiors too at the same time. Yeah. I mean, obviously he did, a ton of those interiors at the same time. So that wasn't necessarily what he was doing, but I think that's what drew so many readers into his books. Mm-hmm. And he just was so exceptional at it. The Captain America Annual 8 cover, for me, I know I've talked about this with both people on the panel before. I have a massive amount of love for G.I. Joe, and I'm sure they both do as well, from talking to them. And Zeck's G.I. Joe covers, Jink Dracula mentioned it as well in chat. They're just something that is iconic to me and almost impossible to separate. And just also, gosh, I mean, Secret Wars 8, just so many different iconic covers he's had a hand in creating, and it's just insane. Yeah. And I'm right there with you. Those interiors being good, definitely, but maybe not carrying the same pizzazz that his covers do. And it's one of those things where I can't think of somebody who's created more images. I hate to use the word dynamic because that could come up a lot when you're talking about art, but I find his stuff very dynamic because it's always showing the action and showing the motion. It's always directing you to a focal point in a very good way, which I think is a fantastic job that a lot of cover artists are good at. But he's just the prototypical cover artist, in my opinion. Fantastic choice, Big B.
Yeah, really good.
Yeah. Chris, do you have an artistic hero that you'd like to share with us?
I'm not doing this in any order. I'm just trying to pick somebody that maybe you guys haven't picked, that just for a variety of discussion. I will say Naoki Urasawa. Manga artist, obviously, currently alive, working. Also a writer, as many manga creators happen to be. Some of the stuff you may have heard of that he's done include Monster, which is actually not science fiction or fantasy or anything. It's just about a doctor who has been framed for murder, who's trying to track down the actual serial killer. It's great. Another one is 21st Century Boys, or 20th Century Boys, it starts as, excuse me. But one that's a great entry point is called Pluto. It's an 8 issue Tankobon volume set that redoes the famous Astro Boy story, The Greatest Robot in the World, where like basically the best robots in the world are being hunted down and killed, and so are some people that had worked on these robots. And this is a world where robots are supposedly prevented from killing. So it's a cool mystery. And Urasawa is great at so many things. First of all, his stories will literally make me tear up, like usually when I'm at like, say, like the 2/3 point, and I'm at like, some sort of emotional crux in the story. The anime is also very, very strong, and it is done largely in his style. I think that he's good at drawing lots of technical detail. He's dynamic. That was a word you used earlier, Christopher. Great sequential storytelling. Like the action moves fast, and he draws like faces not quite cartoony, but certainly more open than the rest of like the detail that he puts in the world. But he's really good at giving them very different faces. It's so easy to tell characters apart, and I adore his work. Naoki Urasawa.
Nice. Yeah, and I'm so happy that to have you on for this segment, because you're going to expose me to some stuff I have a feeling I've never heard of before. And when it comes to manga of that style, it's something that I don't know a whole lot about. So I really enjoy I'm kind of just browsing through some Google images, and this definitely looks cool, and I can't wait to check it out later. That's awesome.
His stories, the nice thing, I guess I'll say real quick about manga, if you haven't had a lot of exposure to it, is once you find something you like, it's going to be very consistent, because it isn't something where like, Naoki Urasawa did the first 8 issues and then, Herman Schultz took over for the next 7. That doesn't happen.
Right.
Wait, is Herman Schultz the name of the Shocker? Did I just I think I just accidentally used a real name when I was trying to come up with a fake one. Anyway,
pulled from the memory banks.
And it's nice sometimes to have stories that have a definitive beginning, middle, and end. Some of them are very big, but they typically will end, and that's nice. Naoki Urasawa is great at structure and pacing with his storytelling beyond the artwork being appealing. Anyway,
that's fantastic.
Are you able to pop up a piece of his artwork on the screen, Chris?
So let me see here.
I hadn't thought to suggest one.
No, it's something that I should have been on top of earlier, but I didn't also want to give you too much homework either before coming on. Let's see.
If you looked up something like Urasawa, Pluto, and then sorted the images by black and white, you might get some suggestions. Okay, yeah, that's from 20th Century Boys. And in that's a story where these childhood friends came up with all these fun sci-fi stories of giant robots, this, that, and the other. They meet as adults, and a cult has been slowly growing, and it seems to be using the ideas that they came up with as little kids. And they're like, who in our small group, that went to our secret hideout would have access to these stories and is using them to build a doomsday cult? It's very freaky.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it's very cool.
It's not a world where you can actually build, just to be clear, actual big robots or anything. But the scene you're seeing there is the top is basically a balloon with a bunch of lights and stuff, and then they've got all these wirings hanging down. It's on tank treads, but it's the closest you could come up with in real life.
Gotcha.
And, from a distance, people thought that it was an actual robot coming into the city. And
nice. I like that.
City. Yeah, it's creepy. It's really crazy and scary.
Yeah, it takes a little bit to get each image up, but I'm trying to find another example here.
No worries.
Let's see. I can show this one, I think, here.
I'm sure anything you pull up, I'll be able to speak to a little bit. But and I admire. Oh yeah, okay. So that's from Pluto, and there had been a war in the past in this universe, and this big robot that you see in the foreground, his name is Mont Blanc. He's the best robot in it's either France or Switzerland or something like that. And he was a very powerful fighter and killed a lot of robots. But now the war is over, and he's renounced all violence, and he's much beloved because he spends all his time doing humanitarian work. And he's one of the most beloved figures in the world. Why would somebody target somebody like that for death? Don't know. So he's just sort of remembering here. like the tragedies he's seen.
Here's like one more I was able to find.
Yeah, that's like the only robot that like was known to have commit the crime of killing someone, and so this detective is interrogating him, and they're like, he's just basically that's him all sort of locked up and everything. They never quite understood why he malfunctioned.
Right on. No, I'm definitely gonna enjoy checking this out, because that's exactly I didn't necessarily expect to come in this with a ton of new recommendations, but I'm happy to have them. That's great.
That's awesome.
I'd love to hear one by you.
So mine, the first one I'll go to is like the lowest hanging fruit of all time, probably. But when I think about the question of what artists really inspire me, and this one at first probably inspired me more to read comic books and to get more into comic books, but very quickly inspired me to start drawing. In fact, some of the first superhero drawings I ever did were directly because of this person, and that person is Jim Lee, which I know is a very broad answer. It's a lot of people are very familiar with Jim Lee. But what I'll say about Jim Lee is he blew my mind, because I grew up reading G.I. Joe comic books. When I say grew up, I mean, the first comics that I really regularly read were G.I. Joe comic books. And a lot of the art inside G.I. Joe comic books is pretty detailed. You have vehicle details, a lot of character designs. Yeah, Stan Lee's brother, exactly. Dave's on it. Actually, I have a funny story about that. When I met Jim Lee, that kind of came up. But really, what's crazy is when I started getting into X-Men, Jim Lee popped up really quick, obviously. If you guys know my age, I just turned 43, so I'm kind of in that wheelhouse there of right in that bracket of that's when I got into X-Men, was when Jim Lee was highly involved in X-Men. Sure. And his detail in his art and how consistent. So like, you talk about a cover artist, like you look at somebody's cover and you're like, oh, great. And sometimes you flip in the interiors and yeah, they're not doing quite as good of a job on the interiors, which makes a lot of sense, right? The cover is a huge focal point. But with Jim Lee's work, oftentimes the interiors were just as detailed and just as gorgeous as the covers. And his use of cross-hatching just like was so mysterious to me. Yeah, it was just nuts, like watching his way that he could make objects appear almost like, not objects, but faces almost appear overexposed in some ways, because like he wouldn't finish lips or eyes. He would only draw like a suggestion of that style. And yet it kind of played with the light sources in some of the shots and putting people's brows in shadow. And it also, I'm sure, saved him time in drawing faces too, but it created kind of a moody aesthetic, which went really well, especially with the X-Men of that time. Obviously, he's gone on to draw all kinds of great stuff from every major company. And, I know a lot of people are going to be huge fans of his Batman. Some people will consider it the definitive Batman or Superman. But for me, that being a huge X-Men fan and of a certain age, Jim Lee just inspired me to actually start drawing superheroes as opposed to drawing cars and planes and trucks and people and all the other kind of stuff that I was just kind of normally trying to draw at that age. I actually started wanting to draw superhero stuff. So when I think of somebody who actually inspired me to pick up a pencil and kind of start drawing comic books, it has to be Jim Lee. Drew so many, Jim Lee style Cyclopses in my youth. It was insane, or Wolverines or Psylocke or Gambit. All my favorites. It was just one of those things where it was crazy. And I had the fortune of finally meeting Jim Lee a couple years ago, and I was wearing a Stan Lee shirt. So it was a big, like minimalist Stan Lee head. So he had kind of like his hair and his glasses, and it just said Stan Lee in like Marvel red block with white lettering below that. And he was like, "Oh, I love your shirt." And he was being so gracious and talking about Stan Lee. And I was like, "Well, yeah, hey, you're the other famous Lee, right?" And I was talking about that. And he was just kept going on about Stan Lee. And it was just great hearing him talk about it. And in Jim Lee lines these days, if you ever get a chance to meet him, things move pretty quick. So it was really special to have an extra few minutes talking about Stan Lee and talking about stuff with Jim Lee. So I think that kind of sold me on the experience of Jim Lee a little bit. He's such an amazingly nice guy, but that was a fun experience.
Yeah. I just want to say real quick, Jim Lee always looks great, but I would love, specifically based on some of the things you were saying, to give a shout out, because inkers never get shout outs, but Scott Williams really is a great collaborative partner. Some people just like their work really, really shines with just the right inker. And for me, Lee Williams is a fantastic tandem. Just like I think Frank Miller's art looks best when Klaus Janson is inking, from that sort of time frame is what I'm talking about. It's becoming more of a lost art as more artists either draw digitally or ink their own work. But great team together. Really great team together.
Fantastic point. And Scott Williams is very talented in his own right too. He's one of those people too. Seeing like him kind of do some covers and some penciling later on in his career was really fun to see. And obviously, I think seeing some kind of like co-inspiration there with Jim Lee's work and his work, potentially. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but that was really fun. Yeah,
it's neat to have been able to watch Jim Lee, grow as an artist too, and see kind of his fascination with Frank Miller and his style when he did Deathblow and everything like that was really cool.
He went blocky,
real minimalist, real noir, dark art style there for a while. It was really neat to see him trying just to flex his artistic muscles and try something new.
It's something you don't always get to experience in comics. I think that once you're in that world, you're on such an ongoing schedule that you don't always have time to do the creative exploration, to evolve your work into something new. Some artists have, and I love to see that evolution. And while Jim Lee sort of went back to what he was originally doing, I respect so much that he was trying new things at the height of his popularity, like right into starting Image. He's like, I want to try some very different stuff with my artwork. And it shows that he's still got the basic composition and blocking out of the shapes and stuff like that. And with any inker, his work would look good. It's just that it kind of looks its best in a certain way.
Yeah. A lot of great comments too about Jim Lee and in the chat. Yeah, and again, I feel guilty to a certain extent taking somebody like Jim Lee as one of my artistic inspirations. But
no, you know what?
I'll say one thing.
You shouldn't because of this. As soon as people like us that talk about an art stop talking about somebody, that's when they start to become irrelevant. You know what
True.
I mean? And if we truly love them, it's always worth bringing up, because there's going to be people younger than us or people that are reading comics for the first time that haven't been exposed to that. You guys have both been reading comics for a bunch, and you were telling me, sorry, I don't know Naoki Urasawa, but now I'm interested. I'm sure there's somebody in the audience, either live or later when it's archived, that was like, you know what? I've heard about Jim Lee. I've never tried him, but Christopher seems so excited. Maybe I'm going to try it.
Yeah, good point. Just like Kevin said there. Absolutely a great point. And that's another thing too that I would mention about Jim Lee is not just for a personal list, but obviously looking at just the artists he personally inspired. Like, it's pretty obvious that the 90s, early 2000s, and even to today, a lot of artists were inspired by Jim Lee, and you see it in their work. And I think that's a really cool thing to see as well. I love always kind of seeing that an artist, McFarlane, there's a few others that definitely have had that kind of influence. I mean, a lot of others really, but that's really fun to see.
And, not to say that like at this point, Jim Lee's old, he's not, but he's older than he was at his height and everything. And it is exciting to see him coming back to doing Batman on a monthly basis, because that's a grind, and that he's willing to like get back into that. I don't know what he gets compensated for being the president of DC, but I imagine it's a lot, and that makes his time very, very valuable. Yep. I'm sure his time as an executive pays more than basically his page rate. It may be not, maybe because he's Jim Lee, I'm wrong, but I'm saying I think that's cool that he clearly still loves comics, because he's willing to go, I'm going to do a 12-month issue series right now. I'm excited. That shows he still loves comics.
Yeah.
I'm sure a passion project thing for him to do that. Yeah.
I want to like artists that I get the sense that they love making comics, not that they're like, it pays the bills.
Right.
Great point, Hector, on the Twitch streams. And there's several artists too that I think we'll talk about later that I know are on the list or lists that do live drawing, and something I was talking about earlier. I love seeing that. That's really cool because not only can you learn from their finished work, but you get to learn from their process too. Speaking of inspirational, which is great. We are going to go back to Big B for the next artist, but before I do that, I do want to take a second to, hey, we are streaming over on the EXP. I mentioned that earlier. It's a great channel that Big B and I are lucky enough to be part of over here on Best Coast Comics on the EXP. Link is in the description if you want to go sub up to the EXP. Another show that's going to be coming up tomorrow on the EXP is Minute to Skim It. You've heard me talk about it before if you watch this show. Minute to Skim It is a very quick review of comic books that are coming out for New Comic Book Day. It's hosted by Kyle, Miss Jen, and our producer on this show, Jay. They're great personalities for getting in there. They kind of, each pick a different book. They talk about it in like essentially 30 seconds to a minute or so about what they liked about it, what they didn't like about it, to give you an idea of if that's something that you might want to pick up at your local comic book shop for New Comic Book Day. So I highly recommend that. That show starts at 7 Eastern, 6 Central, 4 p.m. Pacific. I'll get it right this time tomorrow on the EXP. So definitely check that out as well. Cool. So Big B, let's hear what your second artist is.
Well, my number one artist was Jim Lee.
You were generous enough to let me have it. I appreciate it.
So my second artist is going to be going way back. Like he's one of the foundational guys of my style that I've always kind of tried to kind of mimic a lot of his stuff in my work. John Byrne. So I really
should
like
have
his
guessed
stuff.
that. I thought you were going to say that, and I should have guessed that. I should have been confident. I see that, and I can understand that.
So yeah,
in a way, he might. You could argue it, but he may have been the first superstar artist. I'm not talking first popular one because of course Jack Kirby or Carl Barks. You could argue that these guys had big fandoms or something.
Right.
But John Byrne was a superstar for his era.
Yeah. Good night, Trev. Thanks for
being
here.
Man. Thanks for sharing your artwork and helping out on Saturday. I really appreciate that, as I did for all the artists that helped out on Saturday. Yeah. So John Byrne, man. So what's your favorite John Byrne stuff? I mean, I can imagine the answer, but I'm just curious what you're going to say, Big B.
Everybody's probably going to say Days of Future Past. I just love the whole arc that he and Claremont did is just phenomenal. You're on this whirlwind world tour. Everyone, Xavier thinks the X-Men are dead and they're lost in Antarctica, and now they're going to come back, going through Japan and through everywhere just to come back to get back to Xavier, and it's great.
Absolutely.
I've got a question for you, Big B. Since that's your favorite, the X-Men stuff. Do you read his sort of personal X-Men fan comics of where the comic would have gone if he kept going with it?
Some of it, but I've seen some of it, and it's beautiful. And that, talking about people who have a passion project and do it just for the love of comics. Yeah. He can't publish that. He's not getting paid for it, but he loves drawing the X-Men, and he wants to see to show people where he would have gone with that. And that's just really cool. So
yeah, if folks don't know what we're talking about, he posts that stuff to his forum. He's continued to tell the X-Men story if it continued under his control from where he left back in the 80s with Marvel.
Yeah, that's Byrne,
just in pencils, no inks. What?
Byrne Robotics is his website.
Byrne Robotics, right?
Yeah.
But and I saw somebody else say this in the chat, but it really, I so strongly agree. His inks in his X-Men era were Terry Austin. And I think Byrne has had a lot of different looks depending on how much time he had, how many books he was doing a month. He's worked with a lot of different inkers and inked a lot of his own stuff. But I think that Terry Austin really did bring out the best. He's the one that gave Byrne some of that extra hatching and fine detail that we kind of like in the Jim Lee art. Whereas when you see, Byrne inking himself on Fantastic Four and stuff, it becomes a lot emptier. and you're like, okay, good storytelling, panel to panel, but there's not as much detail always, which is kind of fun.
Right. Yeah, no, I think Dan Green was pretty good with him too.
Oh yeah, totally agree. Yeah, because that's another guy that like must ink with like a quill or something, because he's got like lots of really nice fine lines.
Yeah.
Right on. Yeah, so for me, one of my favorite runs, I mean, it's definitely going to be the Claremont Byrne X-Men run is by far my favorite with John Byrne. But one of my favorites besides that is actually Alpha Flight. Like I really enjoyed that run quite a bit too that he did.
Jim Lee also had some pretty good artwork in Alpha Flight before he really got known. That's where he made his name to a degree, like with the editors at least.
Yeah, especially with Marvel. Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, John Byrne definitely created that, I think, because that's what he wanted to do.
Yeah, I will say, I've talked before about how I was really kind of a Marvel zombie going through high school and everything, but John Byrne going over and doing Superman brought me into DC and the Legends and everything else. So it was just like that.
Yeah,
I was like, okay, well, my favorite artist is going over there to do some stuff. I better go over and see what he's doing. So.
The Snowblind issue is one of my favorites too. Like he was willing to take some interesting chances there. That's the whole like whiteout. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but the Snowbird issue, where it's basically
like whiteout. Yeah. And I also look, I'm a massive Hellboy fan, so I'll just say, hey, John Byrne, co-writer of the original Hellboy story arc with Mike Mignola. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
After that, Mignola sort of was like, I think I can do this, and he's right, but still, Seed of Destruction, Christopher Claremont story.
Right.
Nice.
Christopher Claremont, John Byrne. Jesus, I'm getting tired, guys. That's only funny to nerds that I said that, but to nerds, that's funny.
Claremont might take exception to that.
Yeah, it's one of the beauties of doing this late night show is there's always a few goofy moments, but that's what makes it fun, right? Yeah, John Byrne absolutely deserves to be on that list. It's somebody that I would have put on there just from my love of that classic X-Men run alone. It's just something that I spent a lot of time staring at and still do to this day. Chris, I think we've come around to you. We get to hear about another one of your artists.
Oh, okay, sure. You know what? It'll connect to I'll go from there. Why don't I say Mike Mignola? Mike Mignola is an artist that I don't feel that I have much in common with when I try to draw, but he's still somebody that I massively admire. And I admire, that's an artist who has moved his art style. Like when he started in comics on stuff like Hulk, he drew in a much more typical comic book style, a house style, you might argue. And, he slowly was able to shape his career to be what he wanted it to be. If you've seen that documentary that came out like three years ago or so, I don't know. I forget what it's called off the top of my head, but there's a Mike Mignola documentary, Drawing Monsters, something like that. And does this mean that he was on somebody else's list that you had an image ready to go? I feel
no.
bad.
I was looking it up while you were talking.
Cool. But he's like, look, I don't like drawing cars really. It's not what I want to do. Which you have to, stuff. He's like, I like drawing monsters. I like drawing fights. I like drawing creepy cemeteries and crumbling churches and stuff like that. And he leaned into it, and he just evolved his style into a very, sort of blocky, angular shapes, super thick, dark blacks everywhere that really just make the shapes pop. And if you continue to follow him, he's now starting to do a lot more painting, and it shares more in common with his current artwork than from his his original artwork to sort of like the Hellboy stuff. But it's always been an evolution. He continues to push himself. We were lucky, guys, to see him at Rose City Comic Con. I don't know if you know, that was the last Comic Con he's ever going to attend.
Jeez. Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I met him at his gallery in New York last month, and he and his wife happened to be there, and they told me, yeah, just so you know, that was the last comic convention. We're not doing anymore. Wow. I'm doing like galleries and doing art that interests me and stuff.
That's incredible.
Good storyteller, great at mood and tone and stuff like that. Just so expressive with lines. Absolutely inspires me. I look at his stuff, I get excited. I want to draw. A very, very unique artist. I love his confidence in his work. At least the apparent confidence, I'll say. I love it. Love it, love it, love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, his stuff, it is so unique to me because it's the kind of stuff that I don't think I could even think of. Like if you sat me down in front in 1,000 different universes and had me sit down in front of a piece of paper at any stage of me trying to draw, I wouldn't come up with anything close to that style. And like, so seeing it just kind of like melts my brain a little bit in a good way. So I love checking it out. It's that moodiness you're talking about, the thickness, the big blocky kind of figures. Definitely some carryover there, probably with Frank Miller too, that I think is worth mentioning. And yeah, it's really cool stuff. And I
really see the Jack Kirby influence in Mignola though, when it comes to like the fight scenes and stuff, just like the big fists like coming at you to a degree. It's not a copy, but I definitely see the inspiration and stuff. And I'm like, wow, this guy took what he liked about like, the comics that he grew up with and what he liked about sort of just monsters and dark stuff and found a way to put them together in a way that comics hadn't really had before.
Yeah. No, old dirty fatty. Nobody has said Miyazaki yet. So,
but we are talking a little bit more about comic book artists, right?
Yeah.
Artists known for their ongoing comics work.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I guess technically I did leave it open-ended, but that was kind of implied, I thought. But there are definitely there's room for interpretation of that.
And I know that some of Miyazaki's work has been turned into comics, so you could definitely have made the argument.
I would say that, go ahead.
In the chat, Circuitron's comment, I agree.
That's
Frank
a good point.
Frazetta is somebody that gets forgotten a little bit here and there in comics because he did so much painted work and commissioned painted work and stuff. But he did do comics and he did some great comic stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say I was a big fan of the Wizard How to Draw books when they compiled all the stuff out of the back of the Wizards. But one of the segments that I photocopied and put up next to my art table was Mike Mignola using heavy black and using it in composition and not being afraid to use that. And I've toyed around with it, and it's really been kind of fun when you start not worrying about putting all the detail. You just rely on the shape of that fist behind somebody and to tell what it is, or a foot or whatever, instead of going into, I've got to draw every toe and every little muscle and stuff. You just kind of go, okay, well, this is the shape of the four toes together, and there's the big toe, and it's all black, so it's,
I love when you look at a comic book artist's work and you're like, so much of this is, if I really study it, in my imagination. They put it in shadow or something, but it's not like they're hiding it. I know that they can draw this thing, but it's in shadow. And there's something that like I do in my art sometimes, but it irks me. When you draw a character against a black background and then you sort of draw a little halo around their outline and then it goes black, I'm like, that isn't very realistic to give them that. And it's like, yet I feel like I need to show that I know where the fist ends or something like that. You know what I mean? Mignola just has his characters blend into like this background. Like the shadows are the shadows and it's just black. And I admire it so much.
Yeah, that confidence, right?
Love it.
So I'll share my next artist here. This is, people that follow me or know what I like. I've got a long history of talking about, I guess you could call it kind of pinup art. Some people call it kind of cheesecake art. So I'm going to talk about one of the masters of that form, and that is Adam Hughes.
Oh, cool.
So Adam Hughes,
Thank God that our cameras are all like above the waist.
So one of the things that, I love drawing women. It's absolutely one of my favorite things to draw, just because it just works out so well. Drawing women, and then I like drawing like Superman and big bulky superheroes too. But learning from people like Adam Hughes, or trying to learn from people like Adam Hughes, is really, really a big part of what I love about art. There's so many great examples. I showed this one because this is actually the first Adam Hughes work that I was aware of. I picked up Ghost when it came out, and read it actually for longer than probably most people did, because I thought it was kind of a fun concept. Kind of an underappreciated character. I think it could easily get rebooted these days. But he does so much great stuff. I mean, there's just image after image after image we could pull up. I do kind of lament that he's basically turned into more of a cover artist these days. That's too bad in some ways. I mean, I'm sure it's great for him and his career, and I'm sure he makes lots of money doing that. That's great. I want artists to get paid. But I do miss getting to see some of his composition, and the way he puts stuff together is really fun to me. This his ability to draw, in kind of an era where I saw a lot of very specific female figures drawn. He was willing to draw characters that had more curves to them, not just being busty or anything like that, but also having wider hips and having different dimensions. I think it's kind of shown off pretty well in some of his art, where he's willing to draw some different figure styles. And I've always appreciated that about him. Anytime he does somebody like Wonder Woman, for example, I'm a huge fan of that. When he gets to draw a character like that, I think it's really great. And just somebody who's, kind of helped inspire me on that front. There's another person that was going to be on my list that Big B has on his that's very similar to that as well. And just does a great job. I love him. Can't say enough good things about him.
I'm confused. I thought that Adam Hughes was on my list, but
was it? Did I make a mistake?
You got a different Adam on your list.
Oh, you know what? I'm sorry if I did that to you, brother. That's a problem we made with switching picks at the end there. I got a little confused. Is Frank still on your list though, right?
Yeah, he is.
I mean, now everyone knows what we're talking about, but I had to make sure I had it right.
Hughes is incredible. I agree with you that it's like, I wish that there was more sequential art by him out there, because he can do that very well. And this isn't always the kind of comics that I go for, like erotic comics. However, have you guys ever seen his work for the original Penthouse Comics?
No,
I haven't.
Yeah, I can understand why not everybody came across it, but it's fantastic. It's good. It's sequential superhero stuff, of course, plenty of nudity and goofy hijinks like that, but it looks really good is all I can say. Good character design, good action beats, great composition for superheroes flying and punching and falling through the buildings. Just really incredible.
Yeah, and I think Dave has a good point too about his faces as well.
Yeah, I think he does do a lot of work to differentiate. Like, that Supergirl will have a different face than his Wonder Woman. It will.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, there's some great artists, and I hope it's not taking away from anything on anybody's list, but you think about somebody like Alex Ross, who is obviously phenomenal and amazing, criticized quite a bit for, having very similar faces at times. And I think that, I am never going to knock Alex Ross for anything, and that's why there's the beauty of having so many great artists out there. But yeah, that's something that Adam Hughes definitely does well.
I hate talking over you. I'm really sorry.
No, you're all good.
It's something
you're right.
Every comic book artist deals with, and most of that is due to deadlines. You're going to draw in your style to differentiate the faces and keep them consistent. That's a big challenge on a monthly book. That's a big challenge.
I mentioned Jim Lee earlier, and as much as I love Jim Lee, he can be guilty of that from time to time for sure too. I mean, it's
absolutely.
Yeah.
I think most artists can, and it's not something I blame them on. But Jack Kirby, right? Fantastic artist. could draw like good women's bodies, but their faces not always that pretty unless he had the right inker. But Adam Hughes is somebody that can actually find that femininity and find the beauty within it, and remind us of some classic art techniques. I think one person in the chat mentioned an Art Nouveau style. I see that.
Yeah.
Circuitron setting. Yep.
I absolutely agree. It's just something you guys are both better at describing art than I am, I think, but just something captivating about his style that just has always spoke to me. And yeah, it's one of those things where I talk about it very freely. I'm unabashed that I love that kind of pinup style art. But when something like this Supergirl that we were showing here, this is really the kind of pinup art I like. And yeah, it's definitely sexy, but it's not over the top erotica or anything like that. And when he does that well, that's what I really enjoy, to be honest, and more than the super risque stuff that some people think I like. I appreciate it for a second, but it's not something I necessarily want to own or cherish or kind of admire. And as far as art goes, and this kind of stuff is absolutely
a little cheesecake, but not over the top.
Yeah.
There's a difference between something like Lady Death cheesecake and the Adam Hughes cheesecake.
Yeah,
I was posting it to the chat just in case, but an Art Nouveau artist that Hughes's work has always reminded me of is Alphonse Mucha.
That's the father of Art Nouveau. Yeah,
but I see some similarities there. I also think that the artist Kevin Nolan shares a little bit in common with Adam Hughes.
Mm-hmm. And Terry Dodson, of course.
That's a good call. Yeah.
Who I also enjoy in his own right, for sure.
The Dodsons are great. There's a power couple, Terry and Rachel. Yeah.
She uses a fancy Italian restaurant cheesecake while Lady Death is stuff from Cheesecake Factory. That's right. That's a really apt metaphor. Yeah. Oh, nice. That's a good callback to that art stream.
That's cool. Yeah, he did do some stuff like that. Yeah.
Nice.
I want to find like a really good like tutorial on I want to get better at doing the Art Nouveau style. I've always been fascinated by it, but it's got such symmetry and like repetition of form, and I'm not real great at that. So.
Well, Bigby, I walked all over your pick, so you have your free reign to choose whoever you like, even if it was on my original list.
That's fine. There's plenty of artists to go around. I'm going to
Greg
say
Land. Greg Land?
One that I was really excited to get to meet when we were up at SummerCon was Frank Cho, and he's like one of my absolute favorite artists. Such a range from being able to go to like from animated characters to super realism, just an amazing artist. Obviously he's another one of those great artists at drawing the female form, but he can draw everything. So I actually got that piece signed at the show.
And he's got a sense of humor.
And he's got a great sense of humor.
He's got
amazing. And he loves cryptids, so there you go.
Yeah, that was still one of the most fun experiences I've ever had, and doing this whole. It wasn't technically for YouTube, but YouTube brought me to it. Getting the chance to interview Frank Cho and getting a chance to talk to him primarily, about cryptids and Bigfoot, UFOs. To the point where, and I've told the story before, I'm sorry if everybody's tired of hearing about it, but half an hour after our interview was done, he's standing on stage with me and Big B, and we're talking about Bigfoot and UFOs, and his handler from the cons coming like, Frank, you really should get back to your table. He's like, yeah.
Because can't you see him talking about Bigfoot? Like, so talking about Bigfoot in there.
but not only that, and I'm sorry if any of this is going to take away from what you were going to say, but in the interview that I did with him on the panel, he went into a great detail about some of his inspirations, and I, if you're going to talk about some of that, by all means, jump in, Big B.
Go ahead.
It's just the fact that he was able to draw from more classical artists, when he's pulling from like Rockwell and different sources that you don't normally expect to hear comic book artists talk about, but he started out more as a cartoonist and illustrator than he did as a comic book artist. So, and just a fan of art in general. So he's able to pull in all that stuff. And you really see in his art streams, the ones he does live, you get to see some of his kind of more classical mind at work, and how he's composing and using light sources and drawing shapes. And it's really fascinating and fun to see. I'm sorry, it's your pick, and I've been talking about it, so I'll let you get back to talking about it, maybe.
You're totally okay to talk about it. You enjoy his artwork as well. I mean, and Chris is totally fine to talk about it too. That's why we're here talking about all of each other's picks.
Just this is like, can I tell a quick story about Frank Cho?
Absolutely.
I don't think I've shared this anywhere, but back in the day, he did a Shanna the She-Devil book for Marvel, and it was. And while it was like issue 1 would come out or something, and I get an email, I don't want to name drop. So somebody in the industry like sent me the original art, and he had drawn the whole book with the character completely nude. And then Marvel was like, we can't publish it this way. And, like, he had to go back and like they covered her up, with her bikini and stuff. He drew the whole book with her naked.
That's great.
I don't know what he was thinking. I would love to know whether he was doing that as a prank on the editors, or if they were planning to do it as like a Max book and thought they could do it. I don't know. But I saw the actual art and I was like, oh my God, this is just page after page. This is a lot.
Yeah, well, it's funny because one of the things I talked to him about, because I was really curious about it, is and we talked about this on Best Coast Comics at one point before we went and did the con, so I thought it was very appropriate. He does all these commission covers with kind of hilarious, kind of one panel setups, which is, having been a cartoonist illustrator, that's something he's definitely at home with and familiar with. And I asked him about some of his more risque, pushing the boundary ones, and not even, when I say risque, some people think I mean like sexual, and I'm not even talking about that. I was talking about, like, he did one where he was talking about Jeremy Renner getting run over by the snowplow, and it was very dark. And I was like, do you ever catch hot water for that stuff? And he's like, nah, man, I love doing that, because whenever I get the feedback from that people are giving me crap for it, I love to just make the next one even more pushing the boundaries. And so it wouldn't surprise me, based on hearing about that, it wouldn't surprise me if he was doing that, kind of just see like, yeah, here's my art, and that's my art. Put it in there, and if they didn't want to do it, they just tell them to redo it or cover it up, and it wouldn't surprise me at all.
He's like, I didn't realize how serious the injury was. He's like, but all I knew was he didn't die. So he's like, well, I made a joke about it, and he's like, oh, I didn't realize how bad that was.
It was definitely an enlightening interview for sure, and getting to know him, just pushing buttons, exactly. Getting to know him, that is one of those things that kind of was like, he was everybody. If you've been watching Frank Cho's artwork as it develops, that's exactly who you'd want Frank Cho to be.
Right.
I look at Frank Cho is like good at covers. He's good at sequential art, but that he is a cartoonist too. Because I really did enjoy a lot of Liberty Meadows. I thought that was legit pretty darn funny. He's good at, like, the cute, weird animals, and that owed so much to Wally's Pogo. But it was cool. It was good.
Yeah.
100%.
What Hector is saying there about the ballpoint pen artwork, that's amazing. What the amount of cross hatching, it must be, the hours that he puts into those. It's just insane. If you guys haven't seen his stuff on Instagram, he does work with just a ballpoint pen, and it's amazing.
And so, a lot of the stuff he does with ballpoint pen, not all of it, but a lot of it is stuff that I can't show here, but I can show this image because it's just the cover to one of his books where he did that, a collection of that kind of artwork that he does. And it's just, I know it takes him a long time.
Yeah. You're saying the shading and stuff. Who's the artist? I want to say he's a Spanish artist, did that erotic sci-fi comic called Druna. Like, did that same type of hatching, and I think that might have been an influence for Frank Cho, but it's not coming to me right now. I'll look it up and see if I can figure it out real quick.
Nice.
Talk amongst yourselves.
But yeah, no, definitely Frank Cho is
Serpieri is who I'm thinking of. Italian.
Serpieri. Okay.
Serpieri.
Hey,
I wonder.
Hector,
Thank you, Hector. I feel like Serpieri had to be an influence both because of how he drew sexy ladies and of how he specifically did his hatching and cross hatching for shading, because Frank Cho does that same technique. Yeah, an actual Dracula saying the same thing. Yeah, Serpieri is what I'm thinking of.
Oh, it's very cool.
Just fun sometimes when we're fans of somebody to talk about either somebody that they inspired or that they were inspired by, so that we can learn more about them.
Right.
Definitely. Looking up Serpieri stuff, everything that wants to come up is stuff I can't show. So I'll just show a real quick cover image as well that was safe for publication. I'm sure there's plenty it's just
there was some stuff in heavy metal that was still acceptable, but Serpieri I definitely think of when I look at Frank Cho's artwork. And you see maybe a little bit of it there. That's not
exact,
but
yeah. But I definitely can see what you're saying, looking at especially the black and white. It's easy to see. Unfortunately, most stuff I found is not something I can put up, but which is a shame too, because it's actually not that.
It looks good, right? It's good art.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, exactly. Yep, Frank Cho, definitely a winner. And I was just going to say, like I said, I do appreciate the cheesecake art. He's also a master at that. That's why this was another pick that was kind of right up there with Adam Hughes for me. But really just learning a lot from watching his streams. Something that's kind of a recurring theme that I've been talking about is different artists that do live streams. Love watching his. He just did a fantastic Black Widow one too. And one of the things I do like about his artwork is it reminded me, like that Black Widow stream, there's a couple different points where he just erases it. He's like, I don't like this, so I'm redoing it. And it's like, that's awesome. I love to see that, because that's exactly what I would do. Obviously not as good as Frank Cho, but you know what I mean? He erases real awesome. That makes sense. Big Al Williamson fan. Okay.
Oh, that does make sense. Yeah. I see that. Al Williamson. Yeah. Great art.
Yeah.
And you can't help but keep tracking it back. I all night I've been thinking of these artists, and it just has me tracking back. I'm like, oh yeah, Al Williamson. Then you eventually get back to guys like Milton Caniff and guys like that, and Hal Foster. It all sort of tracks back and back to somebody.
Nice.
Really.
So I do need to take a sec. Oh, hey, well, thank you there. I was gonna switch gears, but Jack comes through with an awesome super chat. Was watching Seinfeld. They were talking about Iron Man being naked inside the armor. What do you guys think? Ooh, this is a hard hitting question. This reminds me of something that Chris might ask if he was watching Best Coast Comics.
I know.
Which I love those questions. So yeah, let's hear from panel. We got to give the people what they want. They want a hard hitting question like, is Tony Stark going commando inside the Iron Man armor?
You get one pinch from the leg lifting, and you're just done. No, you're gonna protect that with some sort of cloth and maybe even talcum powder. You're not gonna risk it.
Don't you think though that Tony Stark has some kind of whatever, could be suede or leather liner inside that thing?
That sounds like it would make you sweat so much. I hate that idea.
It was the wrong go-to.
Suede.
Silk. I don't know.
That's like Ironmonger is I've replaced Tony's suit with suede in the pantaloon region. He'll never escape from this one. Yes, you may defeat Fin Fang Foom, but you will pay the ultimate price in the end.
Oh, poor Tony's Fin Fang Foom.
I can't believe that. No. Plus, most of the time, Tony Stark's walking around in a nice, business suit that he probably just crumples all up the second he puts on his suit. He must go through business suits like toilet paper.
Well, that's the one that you actually hit the nail on the head there. For what always gets me is there'll be this shot where you, especially back in the 80s Iron Man run, where he's in the whole white suit tuxedo kind of thing, and he's hopping into the armor, and it's how could you wear that inside? That would be so constricting and weird. Yeah, just or fabric bunching in strange places. I'm the person who always thinks about though.
Come up back then, but if it did, he'd always be crying because of how uncomfortable it was.
Definitely got air conditioning in that thing.
Maybe that's why he had a nose for one period in the comic book, so so the tears would have a place to stream out. I'm the person who always wonders about, like, what if an astronaut, when you're with that moment where you're blasting off into space and you have to have the helmet on until you're kind of safe in the pressurized cabin or whatever, if you're that lucky. What if you have like an itch on your nose or something like that you can't scratch? Like, that would just drive me nuts. Like, it's divers and astronauts, all those kinds of people. That would be aggravating.
I think that's why all NASA flights used to have one gun aboard.
That's it.
I don't think it's ever been used, but I think that's why they always had one gun aboard.
The ultimate scratcher.
One-time use.
Imagine farting inside of that thing. No escape. There you go, Dracula.
Yeah. Well, he mentions that, but of course that was in the original comics, in that issue of Avengers Spotlight where Hawkeye has famously got Ant-Man on the arrow. It didn't happen in the Civil War movie, but you might remember, like, they put Ant-Man into the armor, and Tony Stark realized the only way to get him out was to fart, and like eventually Ant-Man couldn't take it anymore, and he had to like climb out of the wrist gauntlet.
Oh my God.
Remember?
I don't remember that.
You don't?
For the first half of that, I thought you were messing with me, and then.
Oh yeah, no, that definitely is something that Marvel would have done.
That's great,
guys. Come on, no,
that
did not happen.
So well, man. You sold it so well. I mean, we're talking about Ant-Man, who has a strange history with anatomical hypotheticals happening in comic book situations.
Yeah.
Oh, Thanos.
Which they canonically address in that Avengers Ship Cruise short film. Have you ever seen that?
No,
there
I
was
haven't
like
seen
a Marvel cruise, and they got like all the actors, like Ant-Man and Wasp are giving a demonstration on shrinking technology, and he like takes questions from the audience, and he's like, first of all, gross. And then they get interrupted when Ultron attacks.
Oh,
it's
great.
It's kind of entertaining for what it is.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I just remember the whole internet, like, just kind of like, that's what's going to happen. Just you watch and see. Yeah, right. Okay, so Jack responds, personally, I think he's wearing a tank top and boxer briefs. I couldn't imagine dressed up in a 3-piece suit. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like,
but he sometimes was. He just was.
Right. Yeah.
We saw him put the suit on over it.
Yeah, I could see like a tank top and like a, I guess, like modern Under Armour, but obviously that wasn't around for most of Iron Man's existence, but something kind of like that. Could definitely see that being the optimal, but there's so many times where he had like a suitcase, armor that he was climbing into because he was Tony's bodyguard.
The suitcase armor. Yeah.
For sure.
He really should have teamed up with Dazzler more too, because he had the roller skates. So.
That's true.
We did need more of that for sure. For sure.
I can fly, but I think roller skates are the solution here.
He had roller skates.
And people, they look at like the Batman and Robin movie and they think that they're making up most of the stuff. Most of it was just drawing directly from comics.
Yeah.
Ice skating around and all kinds of crazy stuff. What I was going to say before the super chat, which we really appreciate, thank you very much for that, Jack. That's very nice of you. Is we do have a couple other shows coming up on the EXP, which we are streaming over on the EXP right now. Highly recommend going and subbing them up. In fact, while you're checking out the description to go sub up the EXP, if you're not already, maybe go sub up Chris over at Comic Tropes. His link is in the description as well as Big B's. Go sub them both up. They're awesome people. Go watch their content. Check it out. But you can also on the EXP tomorrow, you can check out James from Mint Hunter Comics. He'll be streaming at 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific. So doing a claim sale. He does awesome claim sales over there on the EXP. always has different wide variety of stuff. If you're looking for some different and new books, I highly recommend checking out James Mint Hunter Comics tomorrow on the EXP. And then another great claim sale is Henri Compton runs one on Tuesdays. That happens at 10 Eastern, 7 Pacific. So Henri is a comic book creator who also does claim sales. Really cool guy. I've bought stuff from him before. He does great shipping, great fair deals. He'll have a lot of like good finds for low value. If you're looking for like a lot of stuff to read, he's somebody I really suggest for that. Mint Hunter, if you're probably more of like that comic collector looking for keys and that kind of stuff, he's kind of more the show to check out for that. But a couple great channels to go check out. Go check them out on the EXP.
So remember, the hot book of the week is currently Turlock #1 by Valiant Comics. The hot book of the week.
Yes. Good luck finding a copy out there. Let me tell you, it's going to be hard. You're going to have to really dinosaur hunt for that one. But so I think were we too, Chris? Where were we at?
Chris's turn now.
Yeah.
Quick question: do you guys have a hard out for the show? Do you have a hard out because the EXP continues?
Well, we are going to try. We're going to try to keep it to about another 10 minutes or so. If we go slightly over, that's okay with us. But I also want to be respectful of your time. I know you've been streaming.
I don't mind. I just wanted to make sure, okay. because we should probably also take some time to plug Mission 22 Heroes for Heroes again.
100%.
Am I number 3 or am I number 2? I don't know where. You tell me what you want to do.
Before that, why don't we do a little bit of column A and a little bit of column B? Do you want to tell people what you were planning on doing later on this week? Well, I know some people will probably drop off as we get towards the end of the show. Might be a good time to talk about that.
Well, I've got a second channel called Pros and Cons where I do a bunch of live streams and content like that. And I got a hold of a blank comic cover for Transformers. But I was asking, what could I donate, for art to your Saturday event? And you're like, maybe something G.I. Joe related. I go, okay, I'll do G.I. Joe versus Transformers. I'll draw it on this cover. And your audience on your socials voted for me to draw Soundwave versus Snake Eyes, right? Yes. So I'm going to draw that Thursday night on the Pros and Cons channel. Probably something like 5 p.m. Pacific is realistically when I will start. So awesome. Yeah, just wanted to mention that I'll draw a bunch of that. I don't know if I'll finish it on live stream, but I'll at least draw a ton of it, and it'll be available for you to include if you can get anything for it on Saturday.
I'm sure we get plenty for it.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
Shout out I do a Trash Movie Bonanza.
On the channel Pros and Cons, one of the things that I do is Jim Mafood, the artist Jim Mafood, and I review bad movies on something we call Trash Movie Bonanza. This is just a prop, but we'll choose movies. And one that we're going to record very soon, I've forced Jim to watch Madam Web. We're going to do Madam Web.
Nice. Yeah, that's going to be fun. I'll reserve my thoughts for the watch along there. That's cool. Kevin, good point. I actually got to give shout out to Bigby for the idea on the suggestion there. It was your suggestion that won, man.
The Soundwave and Snake Eyes was your idea?
Yeah, it was Soundwave and Ravage versus Snake Eyes and Timber.
And I think what I figured out, Bigby, is this. Because I'm trying to figure out how to put all these elements together in a satisfying way. And I think it's a little cheap, but I'm going to do a riff, an homage to a cover. Transformers issue 3 by Marvel has Spider-Man webbing up Megatron and swinging around him. I thought it would be kind of cool to show Soundwave in a similar position, but Snake Eyes has like yanked out a bunch of cassette tape guts and is swinging on those. So I think that I'll try to come up with something like that with Ravage and Timber a little bit more in the background. But yeah, that's what I got.
That sounds awesome. Awesome. Yes, check it out. That's Chris's second channel, Pros and Cons.
Do you have that image of the other blank sketch cover that I drew this week or not?
Yeah, I do. Let me pull that up here.
If it's easy, just to
it's easy. I already had it pulled up. I wanted to
an idea of what I would be doing. Like, this is the closest I could come. I drew this week for a friend that had a blank Ninja Turtles cover, and he asked me to put Leonardo on it. So maybe something along that level of detail or something.
I love the rain there. Very Frank Miller-esque.
Oh, thanks. Like if I had more time, I may have made a decision to put it all in a very strict, like perspective, but I figure rain blows around. And so I just took a whiteout pen and boom, 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 just went nuts.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I actually drew that in my car on my lunch break.
Wow.
Wow.
So I didn't have a lot of room to like line everything up. I'm like going like,
It's amazing. That's
Chris, I love your art, man. You do such a great job. Thank you for sharing it. That's
kind of you.
I was the highlight. Well, I appreciate it. The highlight of Heroes for Heroes last year for me, on a personal level, beyond raising money for a great cause, which is very, very important to me, was my co-host for part of that stream last year won the Baroness sketch that Chris was kind enough to donate, and then gifted it to me, which was very, very awesome. And Comic Journey, if you're out there watching on the rewind or anything like that, or you're lurking in the shadows behind your puppeteer's hands, I really appreciate it, man. Thank you for doing that. That was such a dream come true for me. And I know he got an amazing Doctor Strange piece that Chris did himself, which was a real technical accomplishment too, with all the arms and the illusion. It was great. Yeah. So, but
thanks for
really
letting me plug that, because I do want to help you guys out. I wish I had more time, but I just want to say there are a lot of great things you're going to have for this auction. Personally, the one I work on Saturday, so I have no idea how likely I am to be able to watch when it's time. But there's a Chip Zdarsky, a Spider-Man head sketch. Oh my God, I really love that. I'm like, oh, that's something I'd want.
Here, I can actually
comics, you've got art, you've got posters, you've got so many cool things. Yeah, that one I saw and I was like, oh, I'd love to bid on that. Who knows if I'd win, but we'll see. It'll all depend on my work schedule that day.
And since since I'm right here and I'm looking at that, I want to just highlight a couple others too, because you're bringing up a great point, and we can just
please
kind of advertise this a little bit.
Look at that.
Mark Bagley did this piece for Heroes for Heroes. He specifically donated, and this one's special to me because Mark is a veteran. So that's really cool that he was willing to do that and help out. So I really appreciate him doing that. And then I will say I feel incredibly guilty because off the top of my head, I cannot remember who sent this in, and I apologize if you're watching because it was very much appreciated.
You'll know on your day when you're.
Yeah, exactly. I have it all on a spreadsheet somewhere that I could pull up. But this is a Don Marquez original art piece from Rocket Girls. And that just came in. That's really cool.
Wow.
And then one other one that I did show off recently, but I still think it's fantastic being a big Star Wars fan. I love this. Brian Ching, who is the artist on the Old Republic Star Wars comics, sent in this Darth Revan piece. And that's fantastic.
Great lines.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
And he just absolutely killed it on that. And one of my favorite things about that, it'll actually show it better on here than it did on stream when I showed it off, is he did this on the back. You kind of get to see some of his preliminaries that he was trying to work out, that he was thinking about doing. And that's really cool too, to get that on the back. And it's not just original art. I don't want to make anybody out there thinking we're just going to have original art, but I know a lot of people are excited about that, as am I. But we do have key comic books too, like the first appearance of Harley Quinn, a lot of other great stuff too.
You have variants, you have slab comics, I think. You have all sorts of
lots of great slabs.
Posters.
Yep, a lot of prints signed by Jim Starlin, Lee Weeks, Randy Emberlin. We have some stuff from Andy Bartling, who just announced he's going and doing some work for Marvel pretty soon, which is really cool to see. He did send in some Last Ronin prints and stuff, and some Something is Killing the Children books. He's a veteran as well, which is the reason I wanted to call him out for that, because that's fantastic. We have a Neil Adams signed Batman comic book, Frank Frazetta Eerie magazine. Actually, I have a picture of that. I'll show that real fast because that's a dope book, and we were talking about Frazetta earlier, so why not? But yeah, so lots of great stuff.
Pull something up, and I'm going to ask you if it's anything you think people would want to potentially bid on. Give me just 2 seconds.
Yeah, absolutely.
Frank Miller and Klaus Johnson.
Oh yeah. Let me figure out how to make you the. There you go. Yeah. It's funny, like in my head, I kind of forget about a few of the things that you have. Like I don't forget, but like I'm like, oh yeah, because it's still at your place, like the David Mack stuff and lots of great stuff. So,
which if you guys don't know, we're all going to be Bronze and I and our good friend Richard, will all be making it all happen from one location. It sounds like
live from the Hall of Bigby, as I like to call it.
Deep in the Hall of. Wait, no.
This is a reprint of the 70s Atlas comic, but I got this signed by Larry Hama, who's a veteran. It's not G.I. Joe. Do you think anybody would like bid? Because I'd be willing to donate it, even if you could get like, $10. Like, I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I'll include that.
People love Larry Hama.
When I draw this. So I'll get you a good photo. And if that's anything you can even get a few bucks for, just because Larry Hama is a veteran that's attached. I wish it was G.I. Joe. I don't have a signed G.I. Joe, but yeah, like it's in great condition and all. Okay.
Yeah, there you go. One person right there. I was actually just going to ask the chat how many people would bid on it, and I was going to guarantee you were going to get a few responses.
Okay. Yeah, because even if you can get a few bucks, that would be like great. It all adds up.
Yeah, okay. 100%. And one of the other things I keep forgetting too, which by the way, thank you very much for that. That's extremely awesome, Chris, and what you're doing on Thursday. I really appreciate as well. Well, if everybody did what you're willing to do, we would raise 10 times what my goal is. So you're doing the work out there, and you have a great platform too, and a lot of people, a lot of eyeballs on what you do. So you talking about it, you coming on here tonight, all that really helps us in our goals of spreading the word about this and getting more people. The biggest thing is we need people to know to come bid on the books on Saturday. So that's one of the biggest things you can
definitely hit your goal. And it's a beautiful goal. The idea of raising $8,000 for mental health. I'll just say real quick, mental health is something every once in a while I talk about on my channel because I've got my own struggles with it. Our veterans are people that have donated their time, their bodies, their lives to ideally defending and protecting us and making the world a better and a safer place. And if we can help with their mental health, that would make me feel really, really good. So I definitely want to hit that goal and hopefully surpass it by a bit. That would be lovely.
Yeah, that would be absolutely amazing. And I absolutely appreciate that. I always keep forgetting about this too, because I want to mention it because I haven't shown it yet on social media. But the one other thing I don't have it handy. A couple of the people that are involved in helping us out actually got Brian Posehn, comedian. You might be familiar with him from some
comic book writer
and comic book writer for Deadpool, most notably. Probably most notably, I imagine. But he signed a Deadpool pop, which is really cool. So we'll have a Deadpool Funko Pop signed by Brian Posehn, as well as his new comic book as well that he has out now too.
Grommets?
Yeah. I have an issue of Grommets #1.
So good.
Yeah.
Great book.
So
have you read it? Because the premise is hilarious.
I haven't read Grommets yet because I definitely didn't want to read somebody's signed copy for but that's the only one I would have had around. But I'm gonna check it out.
Rick Remender and Brian Posehn have been real life friends for a long time, and they came up with the premise: what if they had been able to meet as like teenagers that were into skate culture? So like they're writing, it's fictional, but it's like if Rick and Brian had met when they were both like skate punk teenagers in the 80s.
Kind of like historical fiction almost.
Yeah, it is. And it's funny, but it also has some real drama. Artwork by this guy named Brett Parsons, who's got a style kind of like somebody like Jack Davis, Mad Magazine, EC Horror Comics. Really great. Like a little cartoony, but also like really real. Oh, Grommets is good. Somebody's going to luck out on that one.
Yeah, and this isn't the only reason this stuff should matter, but we all know it's part of it too. Grommets actually got pretty hot when it came out for a while too. A lot of people talking about it. So hopefully there's somebody out there that was really a big fan that wants to get a copy signed by Brian Posehn and wants to help support a good cause. So we're fortunate enough to have people out there that want to do awesome work like donating, awesome work like going out and in that case, just going to a con and talking to Brian Posehn and seeing if he'd be willing to do some stuff. And they were willing to, which is really awesome. Yes, it is this Saturday. 12 p.m. Pacific is the official start time. That's 3 p.m. Eastern till the cows come home, basically. We will try to keep things moving quicker. Last year, one of the criticisms that I think was very rightfully correct and being criticized about, we went a little slow last year. We're going to keep things moving pretty quickly this year. The current plan is every hour on the hour, like the big original art pieces like the Mark Bagley, the Chip Zdarsky, we're going to kind of spread those out every hour on the hour for people. Probably a little bit more frequently than that because we have too much original art. Hopefully we're not streaming for what would be like 12, 13, 14 hours to do all the original art. Hopefully we're not that long, but if you're looking for the big pieces and you kind of are busy that day, maybe keep tuning in on the hour and you'll kind of see some of the bigger stuff kind of appear and lots of great stuff in between. But the biggest work that any of you out there can do is sharing the stream, talking about it, subbing up to my channel. I normally never say that, but this is a case where that would be awesome for you to do that, and hitting the remind me for the stream would be awesome. So cool. I'm glad we got a chance to talk about that a little bit. We are kind of at, past that point where we normally would go here. And I know we have tons of other artists to talk about. It would take probably
part 2 is what we need to do. We're gonna have to
I think that might be in order. I was going to say, does anybody want to go around maybe without going into a long essay, which is I would love to hear, but it probably would take all night. But maybe if you want to give another pick, a parting shot for the road. I know I didn't really get it much from either of you guys because we were talking so much. I don't know if you guys wanted to mention another honorable mention maybe or something like that. Just a kind of a fast one for people to look up on their way out the door.
Mobius,
so
John
like
Gerard,
a big mainstream person.
Please, both at the same time, if you would.
Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
I was hoping you would talk again. Okay, Mobius, Jean Girard, always inspires me. Great, super, super beautiful.
Right on. That's a great one. Oh, hey, by the Renegade. Thank you. There you go. That's exactly what I was hoping to hear. We appreciate it. Bring all those whales on and it's all for a good cause. So I have no shame in saying that.
I'm also willing to bid one impression. The winning bidder can ask me to talk for about 20 seconds, and I will guarantee it's the world's best impression that I'm capable of.
Ooh, of whoever they want.
Let's give them a tease. Come, either of you, give me any historical or figure or celebrity, and I'll do the best I can. Just got to show them what's possible.
Bob Newhart.
Hi, I'm Bob Newhart.
Well, you're cheating because you're just playing a clip of him talking, though.
It was me all along.
I don't know. You have a soundboard there with all the celebrities on it.
I'm Bob Newhart.
I don't know about that.
You guys got one or two more artists that you wanted to mention?
You could correct me on the pronunciation. Travis Charest.
I'm pretty sure it's Charest.
So Charest.
And there's an artist
often probably pronounced cherished by most people.
There's an artist that really evolved. Started as not the best Jim Lee clone on, was it Dark? I forget. It was like a Green Lantern clone type of a book at DC. And now he looks so gorgeous. Like the stuff he started doing on Wildcats.
Yeah, his stuff on Wildcats was amazing. I would say another one would be David Finch.
Oh, I was thinking of the director.
No, not David Lynch. David Finch.
Yes.
2007 was the bomb, yo. Yeah, Finch captured my imagination pretty early on. I think like Aphrodite 9. It was kind of that Wizard Zero that came out, caught my eye, but he did a lot of great artwork on a lot of great stuff. Love his Batman too. His Batman's awesome. Kind of up there with like Jim Lee. I'll throw out two other quick ones for me that we're going to be kind of along the pinup vein. Actually, I'll do three quick ones because why not? For the pinup vein, we got J. Scott Campbell. because somebody mentioned Danger Girl, I'm willing to throw his name out there. His Danger Girl stuff. I appreciate it when he was doing interiors quite a bit. And then I'll throw out Dave Stevens. Everyone knows I'm a Dave Stevens fan. Can't go wrong with Dave Stevens. But the last one I wanted to mention, and it's something that we would have got to in the news, because they just had their studio affected by a hurricane. I'm a huge Amanda Conner fan. Yeah, she's amazing. And a little bit like I put her and Frank Cho with his commission style and her style kind of in that cartoonist storytelling kind of vein. I love good storytelling artists, and she's definitely up there. But I was going to mention her specifically to say, and I know Chris talked about this earlier on his show, go check out paperfilms.com, which is their Jimmy Palmiotti and Amanda Conner's kind of company. They have a lot of trade paperbacks on sale right now, which are going to help benefit the cost of the damages that were done to their place down in Florida during the hurricane. So highly recommend checking that out. It was just a great excuse to talk about Amanda Conner's art, which her Power Girl stuff, her Harley Quinn, I've loved all of it. So much more too. Those are the two runs that I kind of was most familiar with, but their work together is always great. So
totally agree. I think that in a lot of ways, the definitive Harley Quinn run.
Yeah, for defining her character and fleshing her out in kind of that modern style. Absolutely. Yeah, agreed. Well, folks, it has been a great show, in my opinion. I loved having this conversation. I love talking about art with both of you. That was great. Thank you so much for that. Chris, do you think someday in maybe the far-flung future we could get you back to do a part 2 of this maybe?
Oh my God, that would be misery. But I do like you guys, so I feel like yes.
That's a win.
Yes.
That's a win. I'll take that. Absolutely.
It's a date. No, I'm just kidding around. I always watch you guys' show, even if I'm quiet sometimes. I do watch the show, so it is fun to chat with you on it. Thank you.
I appreciate it. And definitely won't abuse it, but like I know Big B said earlier backstage, I second this. You are always welcome if you ever want to come on and talk about something, or if you have a topic that you want to talk about. Always love to have you. Folks, definitely go check out Comic Tropes on not only his main channel, which is, I'll say it, maybe make him blush a little bit. It's been one of my favorite YouTube comic book channels since I started watching YouTube comic book content. He does excellent deep dives on character, on creator history, and kind of doing a retrospective on their careers and their styles that I've truly enjoyed watching. I've learned so much from watching that show. I think you've heard him talk about some artists tonight that kind of give you an idea of his background and his knowledge. It's just such a phenomenal time watching anything that Comic Tropes does. And then also his second channel, Pros and Cons, go check that out. If you like what we do for our normal news segment, talking about what's going on in the comic industry, plus he shows off his comic book polls too and talks about those. Always a good time watching that. So I highly recommend checking out that channel as well. We really appreciate his time coming on tonight and what he's doing on Thursday as well.
Yeah. Happy to.
And definitely check out the Mike Zek documentary on his channel. Really good.
Thank you. Thank you, Big B.
Absolutely.
You guys don't promote yourselves enough. Why don't you promote your socials real quick?
Well, fine. And actually, you know what? I'll do that specifically because it's a great time to talk about. If I showed a few previews of stuff that's going to be available for Heroes. I love showing off comic books and taking photos of them and showing them off and making occasionally slightly bad taste, horrible memes. I do that occasionally too. But if you want to check out any more of that, my Instagram is a great place to do that. Bronze Age Nerd, at Bronze Age Nerd on Instagram. Pretty much Bronze Age Nerd anywhere. If you search it, X, Facebook, you'll find me. But another social that I do want to promote, and I would love if people could go follow this account. Heroes for Heroes has its own account that I've been trying to grow. It's only a few weeks old. I think we have 250 followers or so, which is pretty good for a couple of weeks, but I'd love to keep that account growing, especially going on to next year. It's at Heroes for Heroes, so Heroes, the number 4 Heroes, at Heroes for Heroes Comics. Heroes for Heroes was taken, so the best I could do is Heroes for Heroes Comics. So at Heroes for Heroes Comics, where I show off all the previews of everything coming out. I would really appreciate you guys checking that out. Big B, you've got some great socials to follow as well. You want to talk about those?
You can find me on Instagram under Big B McFly. You can find some cool reels of my art, some of the stuff we just did for Heroes, and other people's art that they did for Heroes. We did a really cool little piece there with the Dave Stevens artwork with the Kesha Joyride song on there, so that's kind of neat. Check it out. Fun stuff. And I always do promos for our show, goofy ones like That's No Moon, It's West Coast Comics.
I love that. Also, Bigby showed off a print set of his it was your DC audition, your tryout packet, right?
Oh, yeah.
Your pages. He did a sequential, was it 8 pages?
6
pages. I meant 6. It was 6 pages of a Batman story, and on his Instagram page, you can find kind of a kind of an animated style you did with that, where you kind of told the story. It's really phenomenal art. If you want to see some of his sequential work, that was really fun to see too. So it's another good reason to go follow.
That I imagined would have been in the story in there too. So that was kind of fun.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely. Do we want to tease our guests for next week?
Yeah, absolutely. So do you want to do the honors?
Oh, yeah. So we had a wonderful guest on John's Comics with Kids for the Heroes for Heroes fundraiser, Madame Blaster, doing a wonderful Joker and Harley Quinn piece. And she's going to join us next week to talk about her inspirations for artwork and expanding broadening your horizons of different things you can do in art. I mean, she's an amazing seamstress, makes her own cosplay stuff, sculptor and painter and artist. So we're going to learn a lot from her. Yeah. She's definitely kind of more of a in the term like widely studied Renaissance artist. Like she definitely does all those different mediums, which that's amazing to me. Like I love watching somebody who's a really good cosplay creator and they do lots of great, costumes and that kind of stuff. And then seeing somebody who can sculpt and make 3D objects, and that's really cool. And then also do traditional 2D drawings. And she does all of them, and it's really awesome and has a really good personality to go with it. So, and also was a CBC award winner too, as well. Right. So that's fun. Yeah. He did those little montage things in between each little cosplay intros it was great. Yeah, she did a great job with that. So, so that's our guest for next week. We love having guests on. If you're interested in being a guest, hit us up. That said, we know it's late over on the East Coast, and it's getting even late over here on the West Coast. So we will wrap it up. If you're out there one final time, if you don't do anything else with our channel, that's fine. We'd love to see you, but we really want to see you on Saturday for the final Heroes for Heroes auction, 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. Bigby and I will both be there. We'll have a lot of people, I'm sure, pop into the chat and say hi and talk. Maybe we'll even let some people onto the show real fast if we want some people to want to come up and say hi. But definitely come in and check that out. If nothing else, even just you watching, it significantly helps us grow our audience to other people who might be bidding and making donations to Mission 22. So we really appreciate that. For one last time over here on the Best Coast Comics, we'll catch you in the next one. Thanks again to our guest, Chris from Comic Tropes. Really appreciate you being here, man.
Happy to do it. I had a great time.
All right. Have a good night, everybody. And we'll see you in the next one.
Join the party. Head over to our link tree to find all the links for everywhere the experience is all the time.